This is the March 12th, 2012 interviews with Ruth Hawley. She's almost 92 years old, and she's talking about her grandfather's family. And we're going to talk about the first child, her uncle of her grandfather's second wife, Arvilla Foreman, and the oldest child of Arvilla and William Allhands Lynch is who? Who's the oldest child?
That would be Mabel.
Mabel, okay. So tell me about Mabel. What do you know about Mabel?
Well, Aunt Mabel was married to a man named Tom Johnson, and he was a very much of a gentleman, and was very well liked in the family, but he was not. They had this one daughter named Arvilla. They kept names in the family, and Arvilla. For some strange reason, Aunt Mabel's bad childhood, she took it all out on Arvilla.
Okay, before we go on to that, what kind of bad childhood did your Aunt Mabel have?
Well, Aunt Mabel was beat unmercifully.
By who?
By her mother.
By her own mother.
By her own mother. She was beat and beat and beat some more, and she had a very bad temper from it, and it didn't break her spirit, but it made her a different type of person. She went on in her later years to took teacher's training, and she taught the country school where my father learned. He learned to read and write under his sister, and went to country school. She did herself. She took teacher's training in those days, there in Lincoln, I believe it was. And it was six weeks of training, and she could teach country school.
Okay, yeah, that's the way it was back then.
Yeah, that's the way it was. And if she didn't beat him enough, why, the father and his mother beat him as well.
Wait, so
he got beaten on all the
okay,
my father,
so your grandmother was a violent woman, and so
very,
was the father.
Very, very. That would be Aunt Mabel was.
Well, but she was beaten by her mother.
That's right. She beat her, and she did it with the older children. They all got it. My father, it's a wonder they knew anything, because they were beat unmercifully and hard. And the father, his favorite trick was to kick them if they were out.
Your grandfather,
yeah,
William Allhands.
He pretty got himself killed because he was kicking Warren when he was early teen years across the barn, and he grabbed the pitchfork, and he was going to run the pitchfork through his father, and Uncle Charlie happened to be there with his his crutch, and he knocked the pitchfork back, or he would have stabbed his father. And he was not only it wasn't an open slap. It was he meant business when he punished, and but his favorite trick was to kick him across as far as he could, and it's no wonder any of them knew anything.
Okay,
really.
So Mabel is their oldest daughter,
and she was beaten by her mother. For some reason, he kind of liked Mabel, the father did, and he didn't do it. So her and her father ganged up, sort of. She liked her father, and he did. She got enough beaten with them others, and he didn't do it. So she was her father, even, and she was a very pretty child. The pictures. So
she was a school teacher.
Yeah, she taught after 6 weeks of training.
Yeah.
It's called that was there in Lincoln area. There
at the country school. And then how long did she teach? Did she teach until she got married?
I suppose she did.
And then she got married, and
she married Tom Johnson.
And what was Tom Johnson? Was he a farmer as well?
He was one of the local fellows that arrived on the scene. I don't know where he came out of, but he was a high-class guy, nice looking and smart, and he was a salesman, and he was worked in the insurance business, like my dad did. Uncle Ray had a big insurance company, and he hired everybody. So Aunt Mabel had that very, very bad, uh, and she'd even punish the poor old cat she had. And she'd beat old Cicero, and she'd club that cat and make him sit still on a pillow, and he didn't dare to move, and he didn't know what the poor cat didn't. I remember her stomping on poor Cicero. The cat got beat. That's her temperament. So, but anyhow, uh, she even got into it with the neighbor lady. It was a touch of insanity, it really was. There was, because basically she was a fine, pleasant woman, and everybody liked Aunt Mabel.
Until she started beating somebody up.
Yeah, but she anything touch her off, and she even put poor Arvilla when she was a kid. She went into Saint Vitus dance from beating, and her health broke she was about 6 years old, and after that, Aunt Mabel decided she wanted to sell something like whatever they sold in those early days, and she put Arvilla in the orphanage.
Well, you're kidding.
Yeah, poor little Arvilla. Well, they had an orphanage program, and guess who won the foot race and got her picture in the paper and her name printed? It was Arvilla Johnson.
What did your grandfather think about one of his
well,
kids ending
the
up
family.
In
well, that was a no-no with the Linch family putting Arvilla in an orphanage. Well, the whole family, when they saw that picture in the paper, Arvilla Johnson won the foot race. She was about 8, maybe 7 or 8, and well, she was happier there than because her mother beat her terrible, and Arvilla went into St. Vitus dance from her misuse, and but she went on it. Aunt Gable was she was a hard worker, and she saw to it Arvilla went to college, and she took in boarders and cooked for people and did all sorts of things.
So even though she beat her daughter senseless,
oh, yeah.
she still wanted her to get ahead in life.
Yeah, and she'd beat her for no reason. My mother was there with Russell when he was a little fellow, and she started beating on her, and Russell said, "Poor Villa," and my mother just froze. She needed somebody to stop her.
And nobody did. None of them.
No, nobody did. That's the same way with Sam when he let Cora beat William. It was same thing. So Arvilla's health, she was a strong type of strong person, and she had very strong-willed and strong-minded. She lived through it. Whatever.
Now, is Arvilla
and she was well educated, and she married Frank Johnson.
Yeah.
They kept their names, Johnson and Thompson. Well, she married Frank, who was a lawyer, and he was a graduate of the university, and so was Arvilla. And she was smart enough; she graduated with honors and was a desirable person. But boy, she got it when she was little, and then the family jumped on Aunt Mabel for putting her in the orphanage, and then when she got St. Vitus dance, they also told her it had to stop. The child was a nervous wreck, and hurt, very badly hurt.
Okay.
So
Mabel then, she had Arvilla. Did she have any other children?
No, that was their only child, and Arvilla lived at Lexington, Nebraska, to this lawyer, Frank Johnson, and she adopted 2 children. Frank went and picked out the children and did all the arrangements himself, and they looked like him. There was no mistake. Nothing had to be said.
So the relatives thought they were his kids from somewhere.
Well, of course, because Jeanette looked just like him. But I don't know whether they know that or not. But that's the
family legend.
Oh yeah, that was just understood. Because Frank Johnson was a very astute businessman, and nobody pulled anything his whiskers. He was a very hard-nosed man. He wouldn't be adopting somebody else's kids.
So what are the kids' names?
Frank Johnson.
And the kids that they
adopted? That was Sarah and Jeanette.
Okay.
Were
they twins?
No, they were about 2 years apart.
And they were around your age?
Yeah. And Sarah lives in Lincoln. She's the one that we went to that wedding. It was her son.
Is she still
Sarah.
alive?
Yeah, sure. And Jeanette, they both married very well, uh, and they had their families. But nothing was ever said as far as that it was.
So that's
It was
a
tongue
little.
in cheek about
So
the
that's
adoption.
a little bit of a gossip when they
Yeah,
came home
well,
with the adopted babies. There's
the
no.
proof is in the pudding when the oldest daughter looked just like him.
Well, I guess.
I mean, but nothing was ever said to the. It could be the other way.
Could be. I guess.
Could be,
I
because
guess
nothing ever
nowadays.
denied it.
I guess nowadays, if they wanted, they could run a DNA
Of course.
test. But then it was probably good fuel
Well,
for the family
nothing was
gossip.
ever said. It was just, and he adored these two kids, and that was another tip-off, because he wouldn't do that with the strangers. It would be highly unlikely, the type of person he was, that he that he would be adopting.
Okay, well, I think
Out
that's
of the
enough.
loop.
I think that's enough for Mabel, and we'll move on to the next one.
I want to hear that too.